Hello, and welcome back. Welcome back to our weekly Sunday school lesson. It's a pleasure to be with you. I am Elder Latanya Milliken of the All Nations Church in Oakland, California, beautiful city by the bay. My pastor is Terrence L. Milliken, and his wife is Lady Regina Blake Milliken, and this is our adult Sunday school lesson and the last lesson in our summer quarter. We've had an amazing journey. I think the point of this quarter has been established. We've learned some things. We've talked about some brave individuals and who have stood up for what was right, stood up for the gospel, stood up for right principles, even though it was not easy. And so we've learned quite a bit. So we're going to complete this lesson with Paul facing his accusers. And the lesson is extracted from the 22nd chapter of Acts. I'm going to give you a little bit background from the 21st chapter as well. And we're going to wrap this lesson up, this quarter up. And I just want to remind you before we do that is, so we start the fall quarter next Sunday. It's a great time for you to get your Sunday school book, your adult Sunday school book. It's Union Gospel Press. And if I remember, I will put the link on the video at the... I'll put it somewhere. I'll figure it out. I'll put the link there for you to go to Amazon, get the book. It's nothing like Amazon. They're quick, fast, and you will have your book in time to read the lesson and to follow along for the next quarter. We will be in the Old Testament again. Let's see. We will be in the book of Leviticus and Numbers. And I'm looking forward to that. And it's just been amazing. I've been enjoying the Sunday school with you. I do miss, though, the questions, and I do miss you. But I'm so happy to see you as we want to remind you, you're invited to our church. The address is 5815 St. Pablo Avenue in Oakland. We are strategically located on the border of Emeryville, Berkeley, and Oakland. If you're interested in coming, we are asking you to let us know because we have a limited amount of seating due to COVID. We are social distancing and wearing our masks. And you can contact my pastor at just Bishop Terrence L. Milliken on Facebook. And let him know if you're interested in coming. We would love to have you. And so let's get up. No, before we get into our lesson, I want to share some birthdays. Yes. Okay. So yesterday, we got 3 birthdays in a row, the 27th, the 28th, and the 29th. So my niece, Jaylia Brooks Higgins, who is in the Air Force. She just got promoted to senior airman. Congratulations, sweetie. You're doing big things. We're so proud of you. She had a birthday on yesterday. She's in Florida. And today we're celebrating, today, which is the day of this video, which is the 28th that I'm videotaping. We're celebrating Christian LaMelle's birthday. Happy birthday, Christian. We love you. He lives in San Antonio, Texas. And then tomorrow, which is the actual date of the Sunday school lesson, we will be celebrating our father's birthday, Reverend Felton Milliken, and he has transitioned from work to reward, and he is in heaven now, but we will be remembering his birthday on tomorrow. And so those are the birthdays. So let's get to our lesson, because you're gonna get quite a bit of storytelling today. And so because it's important that you kind of know what Paul went through in order to understand the lesson. And so I'm gonna give you a little broad context of the lesson, and then we'll highlight the lesson, and then we'll wrap it up. And then I've already prepared you for next quarter. It's get your books and read the lesson and read the whole chapter and be prepared. It's a little warm. It's warm. It's a summer night, and in the Bay Area, I tell you. So I'm just cooling off a little bit. Just let me cool off just a little bit. Okay, before we jump into this lesson. So let's get to our lesson. It's Paul. Paul is, we know Paul. Paul was the writer of the book of Romans, and we had a whole quarter on Romans, where Paul was writing a letter to the church at Rome, and he was explaining to them that we all had sinned. No one was better than anyone else, because we were all sinners and we all needed salvation. And so this is early in Paul's journey, where this is early in Paul's ministerial journey. But anyway, so Paul was on his way to Jerusalem, and Paul had been warned multiple times through prophecy that not to go to Jerusalem. On his journey, it seemed like everywhere he went, someone prophesied to him and say, don't go. Someone told him, when you go, you're going to be bound up by the religious leaders. And so Paul finally told everybody, look, I'm going because I'm prepared to go to jail. I'm prepared to die. I'm prepared to do whatever I need to do for the gospel. And so as Paul arrived in Jerusalem, he met with James, which was an elder at the church in Jerusalem. And they began to share the success of the ministry. This was when the Christian church, the birth of the Christian church. And so James was sharing his success, how thousands of people were being converted, and Paul was sharing his the success of his ministry. And so then Paul talked then James talked to Paul about a sensitive matter. He was saying, listen, the Jews here believe that you are preaching against the Mosaic law, and it's not good. And so they came up with this plan, and the plan was to quell the rumors. Paul was going to take these 4 converts to the temple, to their purification ceremony. And the purification ceremony was 7 days. They had to shave their head and stay in the temple for 7 days. And the Jews had a lot of rituals. And so Paul took them, just to keep things calm. And so while he was there, the 7 days went by. But during the 7 days, one of the Jews in Jerusalem saw Paul talking to a Gentile that Paul knew, and he was just having a conversation, but they assumed that Paul had taken the Gentile to the temple. Now, the temple was a holy place, and you couldn't take what was unclean into the temple. And so the Gentiles were considered unclean. And so for the Jews, this was just, oh my God, this was a huge breach. And so when they saw Paul, they confronted him, and then this it started a mob developed. And one man said, hey, men of Israel, this man right here preaches against the Mosaic law everywhere he goes. And so, oh my God, so riots started, and they kicked Paul out of the temple and slammed the doors on them, and had decided to kill him. When in the meantime, the commander heard what was the uproar in Jerusalem, in the city, and he sent his soldiers to find out what was going on. And so when the mob saw the soldiers, they stopped, they stopped what they were doing. They stopped the process of trying to kill Paul. And by the time the commander got to the situation, he asked, okay, well, who is this man? Asking about Paul, and what has he done? And then members of the crowd started shouting different things. And so when the commander could not determine who he was or what he had done, they chained him. They put 2 chains on him. And this was a prophecy that Paul had gotten from one of the believers on his journey, saying they're gonna put a chain, they're gonna wrap your hands and feet up, and the religious leaders, and so anyway, make a long story short. Did I say make a long story short? I sure did. Okay. To condense the story, Paul went with the soldiers quietly, and they were taking him to the fortress. They were taking him to jail, and so they went up this flight of stairs, and as they got to the top of the stairs, Paul said to the commander, "Can I talk to the crowd in my defense?" And so the commander said, "Sure." So because they had gotten a certain distance away from the crowd and it was now safe. And so Paul began to share in his defense his testimony. And when he began to speak in their language, he quieted them down and they began to listen. And so he began to share with them that he was born a Jew, and that he was highly educated, and he sat under the feet of Gamaliel. And that was procedures. Gamaliel was a highly respected rabbi and teacher in that time. And he went on to say, I've been trained in the Jewish laws and customs. He says, I too was zealous to honor God in everything I did. I was instrumental in persecuting those who follow Christ. In fact, I got letters from the high priest giving me authority to arrest them, to beat them. This is who I am. But then he began to shift the story, and he says, "But I had this encounter." I was on my way to Damascus, and a bright light shone in the middle of the day, 12 noon, this bright light shined. It blinded me, and inside this light I heard this voice, and this voice said, Saul, because his name was Saul then. Saul, why are you persecuting me? And Saul said, well, who are you? And I am Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And so Paul said, well, what do you want me to do? And so Jesus gave him instructions on where to go and what he needed to do. And so he couldn't even see because the light blinded him. So the people that were with him took him to Ananias to pray for him. And he prayed for him. He received his sight. He was baptized. He repented. And then he was told that he was called to be a witness of Christ. And so this was Paul's his conversion, when he was converted. At that time, before then, he was a persecutor of the Christians, and then he became a follower of Christ, a devout follower of Christ. And so he was continuing to explain, and this is where our lesson picks up. So I'm gonna read a little bit in the way. I'm going to begin. The highlighted scripture is Acts, the 22nd chapter, the 17th through the 29th verse. I'm going to read in the way, and I'll begin at the 17th verse. So after Paul mentioned that his ancestors had chosen him to know the will and the righteousness of, and to share what he had saw and what he had done, and he was baptized. I'm picking up in verse 17. And so Paul is still sharing his testimony at the top of the stairs. After I returned to Jerusalem, I was praying in the temple. This was after he was saved, after he had this encounter. He was praying in the temple and fell into a trance. I saw a vision of Jesus saying to me, "Hurry, leave Jerusalem, for the people here won't accept your testimony about me." "But Lord," I argued, "they certainly know that in every synagogue I imprisoned and beat those who believed in you. And I was in complete agreement when your witness Stephen was killed. I stood by." and kept the coats they took off when they stoned him. Verse 21. But the Lord said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. Oh my God, what did he say that for? When he said the word Gentiles, they lost it. Okay, verse 21. Verse 22. The crowd listened until Paul said that word. Then they all agreed to shout, away with such a fellow. He isn't fit to live. They yelled, threw off their coats, tossed handfuls of dust into the air. Verse 24, the commander brought Paul inside and ordered him lashed with whips to make him confess his crime. He wanted to find out why the crowd had become so furious. When they tied Paul down to lash him, Paul said to the officer standing there, is it legal for you to whip a Roman citizen who hasn't even been tried? And so Paul had been warned. He had been warned that they would not receive the message. He had been warned that he would be arrested. He went anyway. And so now he's arrested. And in our lesson, it brings out where Paul's pedigree. Paul was a Roman citizen. His father was a Roman, and so there were different hierarchies in the Roman culture. And so, well, before we go there, they ordered Paul to be whipped, because we got a few more minutes. They ordered Paul to be lashed. And so Paul, knowing that a Roman citizen had different rights than the non-Roman citizens, which was like, how fair is that, right? It was legal to scourge slaves or aliens, to exhort confessions or determine the truth. So instead of even asking Paul, what did he do and what was he being accused of, they just automatically assumed he was guilty and was going to give him lashes to beat it out of him. Interesting. That's interesting. I'll let you noodle on that. And so Paul understood. He had seen people be whipped before. In fact, he had ordered Christians to be whipped and beat. But the Roman whips were serious. They included iron chains ending in metal balls, leather thorns, or leather thorns. Oh my God. They were leather strips that were knitted, woven together with pieces of metal or bones, and they could tear your flesh and expose your bones, and they could easily kill you or scar you or maim you. And so it was unlawful to I guess the point I want to make is not to belabor the facts about the whipping, but the difference that the Roman citizens had over the non-Romans, and the privilege that the Romans had, and everyone wanted to be a Roman citizen because of the privileges that they had. If you were in order to be a Roman citizen, you was either born to a Roman father. Wow, no credit for women. Born to a Roman father, a citizen of a Roman colony, a retired auxiliary soldier, given a special privilege from Rome. In other words, they can grant you Roman citizenship. Or after being born in Rome, a slave freed by his or her own master. And so those are ways that you would become a Roman citizen. And so this is the story of Paul, and what the lesson is trying to help us see is to warn that hostile attitudes will exist toward Christians until Christ returns. The principle of the lesson is to ensure that Jesus promises to direct us if we are willing to follow him. And what happened in this story? Paul got directions, but Paul did not follow. The application to not allow fear to control us, but to be willing to serve Christ at all costs. And so that's our lesson today. There are some highlighted points, some things that I took to heart in this lesson, and some things that concern me. The fact that, oh my God, how the Jews hated the Gentiles, didn't want them in their temple, in their church. And you know, that's, whoo, wow. I know that in my studies, I've learned that there are still some denominations that still don't want certain people in their faith. And it's really, it's heartbreaking, really. And so this kind of hit a nerve when I was studying it. And that's just something we really have to overcome in this day and time. We've got to learn to love our neighbors. We've got to learn to love those who don't look like us and to welcome them. The church should be multicultural. It should have all, because heaven is multicultural. Everyone is going to be there. Not everyone, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. Everyone that accepts Christ. And the gospel is to be preached to every nation, because God created us all and he loves us all. And Christ died for all of us. And we should include anyone and everyone who will accept Christ into our hearts, into our ministries. And so I've gone over the time. It's been an amazing quarter. We've learned a lot. Our eyes have been opened. That it's not always easy to stand up for right, and to share the truth, because we live in a time and we live in a society and a world that is choosing other things. So be encouraged. God is on our side. Until next week, where we will pick up and we will talk about Aaron's sons. I believe I have my book here. We will be in Leviticus, the 8th chapter, and that should be really interesting. I love you. God bless you. Enjoy your Sunday, and until next week. Bye-bye.